The autumn sunrise painted golden streaks across Jolie Williams' bedroom window as her 6 a.m. alarm chimed softly. She had always been an early riser, but today's presentation warranted extra preparation. Running her fingers through her carefully styled curls, Jolie stood before her bathroom mirror, adjusting the collar of her crisp navy blazer, a power suit she'd chosen specifically for today's pitch. At 34, Jolie had become the youngest marketing director at Sterling & Pierce, breaking records and expectations with equal measure. Today's pitch to Cloud Tech Solutions in Chicago could cement her reputation as one of New York's most innovative marketing strategists. The portfolio tucked in her leather briefcase represented 3 months of meticulous work, countless late nights, and more coffee runs than she cared to remember. "Mommy, can I help you pack?" 7-year-old Maya's voice drifted in from the doorway, still heavy with sleep. She stood there in her astronaut pajamas, clutching her worn stuffed elephant, Mr. Trunks. Jolie's face softened as she turned from the mirror. "Come here, sweet pea." She knelt down, opening her arms as Maya shuffled over. "You're supposed to be asleep for another hour." "Wanted to see you before school," Maya mumbled into her mother's shoulder, breathing in the familiar scent of jasmine perfume. "Promise you won't forget the pizza." "Giordano's deep dish, extra cheese, no olives," Jolie recited with a smile, having heard the request at least 5 times since yesterday. "I'd got it memorized right here." She tapped her temple, earning a giggle from Maya. In the kitchen, Jolie's mother, Eleanor, was already preparing breakfast. The smell of French toast, their special occasion tradition, filled the air. "Big day today," Eleanor said, sliding a plate across the counter. "Though I still don't understand why they can't do these meetings over that video call thing you always use." "Zoom, Mom," Jolie corrected, taking a bite. "And Cloud Tech wants to meet their potential partners face to face. It's a $5 million campaign. I'd want to meet in person too." She checked her phone, scanning the morning's emails while simultaneously reviewing her mental checklist. Presentation backed up on both laptop and cloud. Check. Extra charger. Check. Business cards. Check. Maya climbed onto the bar stool next to her mother, small fingers reaching for a piece of French toast. "Will you see any clouds from the airplane, Mommy?" "I'll take pictures just for you," Jolie promised, wiping a spot of syrup from Maya's chin. "And maybe we can spot your cloud shapes together when I get back tomorrow night." Eleanor poured fresh coffee into Jolie's favorite travel mug, a Mother's Day gift from Maya, decorated with wobbly painted hearts. "You've got everything ready for the presentation." "Everything except my nerves," Jolie admitted, taking the mug gratefully. "But Patricia from sales says Cloud Tech's CEO loved our initial proposal. We just need to nail down the details and timeline." The morning light grew stronger, streaming through the kitchen windows and catching the silver pendant around Jolie's neck, her father's last gift before he passed. She touched it briefly, a habit before every important meeting. "He'd be proud," Eleanor said softly, noticing the gesture. Jolie checked her watch. 7:15 a.m. Her car service would arrive in 15 minutes. She knelt down to Maya's level, straightening her daughter's pajama collar. "Now remember, Grandma's picking you up from school today. Be good, do your homework, and tomorrow night we'll have the best pizza Chicago has to offer." Maya wrapped her arms around her mother's neck. "You'll do amazing, Mommy. You always do." With a final kiss for Maya and a quick hug for her mother, Jolie gathered her belongings. As she waited for her car in the crisp morning air, she ran through her presentation points one more time. The weight of her laptop bag felt reassuring against her shoulder, containing months of work and preparation. Her phone buzzed. The driver was 2 minutes away. Looking up at her apartment window, Jolie saw Maya and Eleanor waving. She waved back, feeling that familiar mix of excitement and determination that came before every big presentation. Today would be different, though. Today would change everything, just not in the way she expected. The Sky Lounge at LaGuardia's Terminal B hummed with the quiet efficiency of early morning business travelers. Jolie settled into a plush leather chair, her priority access boarding pass safely tucked into her passport holder. The gentle clicks of laptop keys and muted conversations created a familiar symphony she'd grown to appreciate during her frequent business trips. "Would you mind showing me your lounge access card again?" The question came from Sarah Mitchell, a flight attendant whose silver name tag caught the morning light. Jolie noticed it was the third time in 20 minutes she'd been asked to verify her credentials, an unusual frequency even for the most thorough staff member. "Of course," Jolie replied smoothly, retrieving her platinum frequent flyer card. She couldn't help but notice how Mitchell's scrutiny lingered over her credentials while merely glancing at those of other passengers. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, a United Airlines plane taxied past, its wings gleaming in the morning sun. 2 seats away, a silver-haired executive in an Italian suit accessed the lounge with just a quick flash of his card. Mitchell's warm welcome back, "Mr. Harrison," contrasted sharply with the cool professionalism she'd directed at Jolie. The disparity wasn't lost on either of them. Turning back to her laptop, Jolie immersed herself in her presentation slides. The Cloud Tech pitch needed to be flawless. She'd researched their entire executive board, memorized their previous campaigns, and even studied their corporate culture to ensure her proposal aligned perfectly with their vision. "Excuse me," Mitchell's voice interrupted again. "I'll need to verify your boarding pass as well." A young man in business casual attire looked up from his newspaper, his brow furrowing as he observed the interaction. Jolie maintained her composure, producing her boarding pass with a practiced smile. She'd encountered similar situations before: the subtle questioning, the extra verification, the unspoken implications. "Is there something specific you're concerned about?" Jolie asked carefully, her voice measured and professional. Years of corporate negotiations had taught her the value of documentation. She discreetly opened her phone's notes app, recording the time and nature of each interaction. "Just following protocol," Mitchell replied, though her eyes told a different story. She moved away to greet a family entering the lounge, her entire demeanor shifting to one of warm hospitality. The businessman with the newspaper caught Jolie's eye and gave a slight shake of his head. "Marcus Chen," he introduced himself quietly, extending his business card. "Corporate accountability lawyer. You might want to keep my number handy." Jolie accepted the card with a grateful nod, tucking it into her portfolio. The gesture wasn't lost on Mitchell, who watched the exchange from her position near the entrance. The flight attendant's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. The lounge's breakfast buffet offered an array of pastries and fresh fruit, but Jolie's appetite had vanished. She sipped her green tea instead, reviewing her presentation one final time. The Cloud Tech executives would be expecting innovation, confidence, and precision, qualities she demonstrated throughout her career. Final boarding call for first-class passengers on Flight UA 1242 to Chicago O'Hare. The announcement echoed through the lounge. Jolie gathered her belongings, purposefully taking her time. Experience had taught her to move with deliberate grace under observation. As she approached the gate, Mitchell appeared again, now in her official flight uniform. "I'll be your lead flight attendant today," she announced, her professional mask firmly in place. "I'll need to verify your boarding pass one final time before you board." Behind her, Marcus Chen cooed up, his newspaper tucked under his arm. Several other passengers from the lounge watched the scene unfold, their expressions ranging from concern to curiosity. Jolie handed over her boarding pass, maintaining eye contact with Mitchell. "Everything appears to be in order," Mitchell finally conceded, unable to find any discrepancy. Jolie walked down the jet bridge, her heels clicking against the metal floor, each step echoing with purpose. As she settled into her first-class seat, she couldn't shake the feeling that this flight would test more than just her presentation skills. The morning sun streamed through the airplane window, casting long shadows across her laptop case. In just a few hours, she'd be pitching to Cloud Tech's executives. But first, she had 3 hours in an enclosed space with Sarah Mitchell, and something told her this was only the beginning. The Boeing 737 reached its cruising altitude, the seatbelt sign dimming with a soft chime. Jolie watched as Sarah Mitchell transformed into a paragon of hospitality, for everyone except her. The flight attendant's performance was almost artistic in its precision, a carefully orchestrated dance of selective service. "Good morning. Would you care for orange juice or champagne?" Mitchell's voice carried the warmth of summer as she offered pre-flight beverages to the passenger in 2A. 2 minutes later, when reaching Jolie in 2C, her tone shifted to winter. "Beverage." The single word hung in the air like frost. "Orange juice, please," Jolie responded pleasantly, maintaining her professional demeanor. She noticed Marcus Chen, the lawyer from the lounge, watching the interaction from his seat across the aisle. His pen moved quietly across his leather-bound notebook. Mitchell returned with Jolie's juice, placing it on her tray without a word. The plastic cup landed with slightly more force than necessary, causing a small splash. In contrast, the flight attendant had just hand-delivered crystal champagne flutes to other first-class passengers, complete with linen napkins and warm smiles. Jennifer Torres, seated beside Jolie, couldn't help but notice the disparity. A tech executive herself, she'd been reviewing quarterly reports on her tablet when she paused to observe the unfolding situation. "Interesting service style," she murmured, just loud enough for Jolie to hear. The breakfast service began 30 minutes into the flight. Mitchell's voice carried through the cabin like melody. "Would you prefer the French toast or the egg white frittata?" But when she reached Jolie's row, the script changed. "Breakfast." Again, that single word, delivered with all the warmth of a tax audit. "The frittata, please," Jolie requested, maintaining eye contact. She noticed how Mitchell served other passengers with flourishes. Freshly ground pepper, extra butter, warm bread rolls. Her own meal arrived as if dropped from orbit, the plate landing with a subtle but distinct clatter. Throughout the service, James Cooper, the senior flight attendant, moved efficiently through the business class cabin. Occasionally, his gaze drifted forward, taking in the unusual dynamic playing out in first class. His expression remained neutral, but his eyes missed nothing. Jolie focused on her presentation, but small incidents continued to accumulate. When her reading light malfunctioned, Mitchell responded to her call button with visible reluctance. "It works fine for everyone else," she stated, not even attempting to help. Minutes later, she spent 5 minutes helping another passenger connect to the in-flight Wi-Fi. "Excuse me," Jennifer Torres suddenly spoke up, her voice clear and professional. "I believe my seatmate's light needs attention. Perhaps we could get some technical assistance." The authority in her tone left no room for dismissal. Mitchell's face tightened imperceptibly. "I'll have maintenance check it after we land." She moved away quickly, nearly colliding with James Cooper, who had appeared with fresh coffee service. "Allow me," Cooper said smoothly, reaching up to adjust Jolie's light fixture. With a few deft movements, he restored its function. "Sometimes they just need a gentle touch," he added meaningfully, his eyes meeting Mitchell's retreating form. Midway through the flight, Jolie received a message from her client, requesting an earlier meeting time. As she reached for her laptop to adjust her schedule, turbulence rattled the cabin. Mitchell rushed to secure loose items, carefully steadying drinks and personal belongings for other passengers. When she passed Jolie's seat, she ignored the wobbling orange juice that threatened to spill onto her laptop. Marcus Chen smoothly extended his arm across the aisle, stabilizing Jolie's drink just in time. "Remarkable timing," he commented dryly, making another note in his book. The tension in the cabin had become palpable, an invisible current running beneath the usual drone of jet engines. Other passengers exchanged glances, some taking discreet photos or videos with their phones. The contrast between Mitchell's elaborate courtesy toward some passengers and her rigid minimalism toward Jolie had become impossible to ignore. As the flight progressed, Jolie maintained her focus on her upcoming presentation, her father's pendant warm against her skin. She thought of Maya, of the promise to bring back pizza, of the lessons she taught her daughter about dignity and strength. Each cold interaction, each subtle slight, each moment of disparate treatment was carefully filed away in her mental notebook. This flight was becoming more than just a journey to a business meeting. It was transforming into a moment of truth that would echo far beyond the confines of this aircraft. The flight entered its second hour as storm clouds gathered outside, casting shifting shadows through the cabin. Jolie had just finished refining her presentation when her laptop's battery indicator flashed red. She pressed the call button, and after a deliberate 3-minute delay, Sarah Mitchell appeared. "I need to charge my laptop," Jolie stated professionally. "Could you please direct me to the nearest power outlet?" Mitchell's lips curved into what might have technically qualified as a smile. "I'm afraid all our outlets are currently occupied." She gestured vaguely toward the cabin, though Jolie could clearly see unused outlets in several nearby seats. Jennifer Torres, who had been silently observing while pretending to read, suddenly spoke up. "That's strange. I was just told by Mr. Cooper that several outlets were available." In fact, she unplugged her own fully charged device. "You can use mine." The exchange caught the attention of several passengers, including an elderly woman in one who had been watching the systematic pattern of behavior unfold since takeoff. She removed her reading glasses, her eyes sharp with recognition of the situation. As Mitchell turned to leave, her elbow knocked against Jolie's water glass, sending it tumbling toward the open laptop. Jolie's quick reflexes saved her computer, but her presentation papers weren't so fortunate. Water spread across the documents like watercolor paint, blurring the carefully prepared notes. "Oh, my apologies," Mitchell said, her tone suggesting anything but remorse. "Let me get you some napkins." She walked away unhurried, despite the spreading water. James Cooper materialized almost immediately with a stack of cloth napkins. "Please, allow me to help," he said, efficiently helping Jolie salvage her documents. His presence seemed to shift the atmosphere in the cabin, like a sudden change in air pressure. "This has gone far enough," Marcus Chen announced, rising from his seat. "Ms. Williams, I've documented 17 distinct instances of discriminatory service in the past 2 hours. As a civil rights attorney, I can assure you this behavior is actionable." Mitchell returned with a single paper napkin, freezing at Chen's words. The cabin grew quiet, save for the steady hum of engines. "I don't know what you're implying," Mitchell began, her voice tight. "But if Ms. Williams is being disruptive—" "Disruptive," Jennifer Torres interrupted, standing as well. "I've got 40 minutes of video showing exactly who's being disruptive. I'm a board member at Equality now, and this is textbook discrimination." Jolie raised her hand calmly, commanding attention without raising her voice, a skill honed in countless boardroom meetings. "Ms. Mitchell, I haven't been disruptive. I haven't been rude. I've remained professional despite your continuous attempts to provoke a reaction. Now I'd like to speak with the lead flight attendant." "I am the lead," Mitchell started. "I'm the senior flight attendant on this aircraft," James Cooper interjected, stepping forward. "Ms. Mitchell, please take your break. Now." His tone left no room for argument. The elderly woman from 1A turned in her seat. "Young lady," she addressed Mitchell, her voice carrying the weight of years of experience. "I was one of the first female commercial pilots in 1975. We didn't break barriers just to watch others build new ones. You should be ashamed." Mitchell's face flushed as she realized the situation had spiraled beyond her control. Passengers throughout first class were now openly recording, their phones capturing every moment of the confrontation. Cooper turned to Jolie, his demeanor professional and apologetic. "Ms. Williams, on behalf of the airline, I sincerely apologize. I've already contacted ground operations. Someone will meet us at the gate in Chicago." Jolie nodded, maintaining her composure even as support poured in from surrounding passengers. A young girl, perhaps Maya's age, watched wide-eyed from her seat in business class, learning a different kind of lesson than anyone had planned. As Mitchell retreated to the galley and Cooper took over the service, Jolie returned to preparing for her presentation. Her father's pendant seemed to pulse with warmth against her skin. She'd handled the situation with grace and dignity, just as she'd always taught Maya to do. But this wasn't over. This was just the beginning of a much larger conversation. The plane pushed through the storm clouds into clear skies, the sunlight breaking through just as truth had broken through the tension. Chicago was still an hour away, but change was already in motion at 35,000 feet. The remainder of the flight transformed into something unexpected, a masterclass in human solidarity. With Mitchell relegated to the back galley, the atmosphere in the cabin shifted like a weather system clearing after a storm. James Cooper handled the service with practiced professionalism, while passengers began sharing their perspectives and evidence. Jennifer Torres leaned over, her tablet displaying dozens of time-stamped video clips. "I started recording after the third credential check in the lounge," she explained, her tech executive background evident in her methodical documentation. The contrast in service is striking when you see it played back. From across the aisle, Marcus Chen organized his notes with the precision of a seasoned lawyer. 17 distinct incidents, 12 witnesses, and multiple recordings from different angles, he detailed, passing Jolie his business card. "This isn't just a bad day at work. This is a pattern that needs addressing." The elderly former pilot, who introduced herself as Captain Margaret Sullivan, made her way back from the restroom and paused at Jolie's seat. "You handled yourself beautifully," she said, her voice carrying decades of hard-won wisdom. "In 75, we had to stay quiet to keep our jobs. Today, we speak up to make change." A flight attendant from business class, Lisa Martinez, stopped by during her service round. "I've worked with Mitchell before," she whispered, sliding Jolie her employee number. "You're not the first, but I hope you'll be the last. I'll testify if needed." As word spread through the cabin about what had transpired, support materialized in various forms. A social media strategist from Row 4 offered to help amplify the story. A human resources director from a Fortune 500 company provided her insights on corporate accountability. Even a children's book author in business class sketched out a story about kindness and equality, inspired by the events. Jolie's phone buzzed with an email from CloudTech's CEO. "Meeting delayed due to weather. Rescheduled for 3 p.m. The universe, it seemed, was creating space for what needed to happen next. James Cooper approached with fresh coffee. "Ground team is prepared for our arrival," he said quietly. "The station manager and customer service director will meet us at the gate. I've submitted my initial report, and 6 other crew members have already asked to provide statements." The young girl from business class, accompanied by her mother, walked past on her way to the bathroom. She slipped a folded paper onto Jolie's tray, a drawing of 2 stick figures holding hands, one labeled "My Mom" and the other "Brave Lady." Below, in careful child's writing, "Thank you for being strong." Jolie carefully tucked the drawing into her portfolio, next to Maya's photo. She thought about her daughter, about the world she was helping to shape for her. Each supportive gesture from the passengers and crew wasn't just about one incident. It was about setting precedents, creating change, ensuring that Maya's generation would face fewer of these battles. Jennifer Torres worked quietly on her laptop, occasionally sharing statistics about similar incidents in corporate settings. "The difference today," she noted, "is that we have evidence. And more importantly, we have allies who won't stay silent." As the plane began its descent into O'Hare, Mitchell emerged briefly to take her jump seat, pointedly avoiding eye contact with anyone. The contrast between her isolation and the united front of passengers and crew couldn't have been starker. Captain Sullivan, who had moved to a closer seat to continue their conversation, patted Jolie's hand. "You know, in all my years of flying, I've learned that the worst turbulence often leads to the smoothest air. This isn't just about one flight attendant or one airline. It's about all the flights to come, all the passengers who will board after us." The plane touched down in Chicago, the city's skyline gleaming in the afternoon sun. As passengers prepared to deplane, Many exchanged contact information with Jolie, creating an impromptu network of support. The incident had transformed a random group of travelers into a united community, each person choosing to stand on the right side of change. At the gate, just as Cooper had promised, airline officials waited. But now, Jolie wouldn't meet them alone. She had a plane full of allies, each carrying a piece of the truth, each ready to ensure that this story would lead to real change. The jet bridge at O'Hare hummed with anticipation as passengers filed out, each nodding supportively to Jolie as they passed. At the gate, Sandra Chen, the airline's regional director of customer experience, stood alongside Keith Martinez, the Chicago station manager. Their pressed suits and alert expressions suggested they'd been briefed about the situation. "Ms. Williams," Sandra stepped forward, her tone measured but genuine. "We'd like to invite you to our executive conference room to discuss today's events. We take these matters extremely seriously." Marcus Chen, the civil rights attorney, appeared at Jolie's side. "I'll be accompanying Ms. Williams," he stated professionally. Jennifer Torres joined them, tablet in hand, while Captain Sullivan walked nearby, her experienced presence adding gravity to the group. The executive conference room overlooked the bustling tarmac, planes taking off and landing in a choreographed dance of aviation. As they settled into leather chairs, Jolie's phone buzzed. A text from Maya. "Good luck with your meeting. Monty, don't forget the pizza." The message centered her, reminding her why this moment mattered. "Before we begin," Sandra started, but she was interrupted by a large screen flickering to life. On it appeared Richard Harrison, the airline's CEO, joining virtually from headquarters. "Ms. Williams," Harrison's voice filled the room, "I've reviewed the preliminary reports and some of the passenger videos that are already circulating. I wanted to be part of this conversation personally." Jolie sat straight, her marketing director instincts kicking in. "Mr. Harrison, today's incident reflects a larger issue that requires more than a standard corporate response." Jennifer Torres opened her tablet, displaying a compilation of video clips. "We've documented multiple instances of discriminatory behavior," she explained, her tech executive background lending authority to her presentation. The CEO's expression remained focused as he watched. "Ms. Williams, we're prepared to take immediate action. First, let me apologize on behalf of the entire airline. What happened today goes against everything we stand for." Sandra Chen pulled out a tablet of her own. "We're implementing several immediate measures. Flight attendant Mitchell has been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation. We're also launching a comprehensive review of our training protocols." "Not enough," Captain Sullivan interjected, her decades of aviation experience evident in her tone. "You need systemic change, not just reactive measures." Harrison nodded on screen. Captain Sullivan: "Yes, I recognize you from our Aviation Pioneers program. You're absolutely right. Ms. Williams, we'd like to propose something different." He outlined a plan. Establishing a passenger advocacy board, with Jolie invited to serve as a founding member. The airline would commit to mandatory monthly training sessions, revised hiring practices, and a new passenger feedback system. Additionally, Sandra added, "We're prepared to make a significant donation to an organization of your choice that promotes equity in aviation." Marcus Chen took notes, his legal expertise evident in his pointed questions about implementation and accountability. The discussion evolved into a constructive dialogue about creating meaningful change rather than just damage control. Jolie's phone buzzed again. CloudTech had sent another email. "Saw the videos. Take your time. Meeting can wait. Some things are more important than business deals." "Mr. Harrison," Jolie spoke with the same confidence she planned to use in her CloudTech presentation, "I appreciate the comprehensive response, but I want to ensure this creates lasting change." "Name your terms," Harrison replied without hesitation. For the next hour, they crafted a detailed action plan. The airline would establish a scholarship program for underrepresented groups in aviation. They would revamp their training programs with input from diversity experts, Most importantly, they would create transparent reporting systems for similar incidents. As the meeting concluded, Sandra handed Jolie a folder. "Your upcoming flights have been upgraded to lifetime premium status. It's a small gesture, but..." "Actually," Jolie smiled, thinking of Maya. "Instead of upgrading my flights, how about we use that budget to sponsor aviation camp for underprivileged kids?" Harrison's smile on the screen matched those around the table. "This is exactly why we need you on our advocacy board, Ms. Williams. You see the bigger picture." Outside the conference room, the airport continued its eternal rhythm of departures and arrivals. But inside, something new was taking flight. A commitment to change that would reach far beyond one incident on one morning flight to Chicago. 1 month after the flight, Jolie stood at a podium in the airline's corporate headquarters, addressing a room of executives, flight crews, and media representatives. The event was being live-streamed to all the airline's hubs across the country. Behind her, a screen displayed the company's new initiative, Sky-High Standards, elevating everyone. "Change doesn't happen in the boardroom alone," Jolie began, her voice carrying the same strength she'd shown on that fateful flight. "It happens at 35,000 feet, at check-in counters, at gates, and in every interaction we share." The audience included familiar faces. Jennifer Torres had joined the airline's newly formed Technology and Accountability Committee, bringing her Silicon Valley expertise to modernize reporting systems. Marcus Chen served as legal advisor to the Passenger Advocacy Board. Captain Sullivan had come out of retirement to lead training sessions, her experiences bridging generations of aviation professionals. In the front row, Maya sat between Eleanor and James Cooper, who had become an unexpected ally in implementing new service protocols. Maya wore a junior pilot pin, a gift from Captain Sullivan, and beamed as her mother continued speaking. "This past month, we've trained over 5,000 employees," Jolie reported. "But more importantly, we've listened to their stories, their challenges, and their ideas for improvement." She gestured to a group of flight attendants, including Lisa Martinez, who had been promoted to lead the new peer support program. The changes weren't just procedural. The airline had launched Future Flyers, a scholarship program providing aviation education to underserved communities. The first class of 30 students, selected from diverse backgrounds, would begin their journey next semester. Richard Harrison, the CEO, joined Jolie at the podium. "When Ms. Williams first brought this incident to our attention, we had two choices: treat it as a PR crisis or embrace it as an opportunity for transformation. Thanks to her guidance, we chose the latter." The screen behind them shifted to show statistics. Complaints of discriminatory behavior had dropped by 60% in just 1 month. Employee satisfaction scores had risen by 40%. The airline's new mobile reporting app, developed under Jennifer Torres' supervision, had already helped identify and address dozens of potential incidents before they escalated. "But numbers don't tell the whole story," Jolie continued. "Real change happens in moments like last week, when a young girl of color saw herself represented in our new advertising campaign and told her mother, 'I want to be a pilot too.'" Maya stood up suddenly, her hand raised high. "Mommy, tell them about the book." The audience chuckled warmly as Jolie smiled. "Yes, thank you, Maya. We're also launching a children's book series about aviation, featuring diverse characters and real stories of breakthrough achievements in flight. The first book, inspired by Captain Sullivan's journey, will be distributed to schools nationwide." Sarah Mitchell's story had taken its own turn. After completing intensive sensitivity training, she had requested to speak at today's event. Standing at the back of the room, she shared her journey of confronting unconscious biases and learning from her mistakes. Her honesty added another layer of authenticity to the day's message. The initiative had rippled beyond one airline. Other carriers had reached out, seeking guidance on implementing similar programs. The aviation industry, traditionally slow to change, was experiencing a moment of collective reflection and action. "This isn't just about making travel more comfortable," Jolie concluded. touching her father's pendant. It's about ensuring that every person who steps onto an aircraft feels the wonder of flight, untainted by prejudice or preconception. After the presentation, Maya rushed to her mother, clutching her junior pilot pin. "Did I help make things better too, Mommy?" Jolie knelt to her daughter's level. "You helped more than you know, sweet pea. Every time you remind us to be kind, to be brave, to stand up for what's right. You're making the world a little bit better." The corporate headquarters buzzed with energy as attendees mingled, sharing stories and strategies. What had started as one incident on one flight had transformed into a movement, proving that sometimes the most powerful changes begin at the moment we choose to rise above turbulence, maintaining our course toward a clearer sky. Outside the windows, planes took off into the afternoon sun, each carrying passengers who would benefit from the changes set in motion by one woman's dignity and determination in the face of discrimination. 6 months later, Jolie stood at the window of Gate C-12 at LaGuardia Airport, watching a gleaming aircraft taxi to its position. Its tail bore the airline's new logo, accompanied by the sky-high standards emblem. She smiled, remembering the journey that had led to this moment. Today marked the launch of the airline's first all-female, multicultural crew flight, with Captain Sullivan coming out of retirement one last time to serve as honorary pilot. The gate area buzzed with energy as passengers noticed the news cameras and the special banner announcing the historic flight. "Ms. Williams," a familiar voice called out. Lisa Martinez, now Senior Flight Service Manager, approached with a group of flight attendant trainees. "Would you mind saying a few words to our newest class?" Maya, now 8, tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Tell them about the book, Mom. It's in all the seat pockets today." She proudly held up Wings of Change, the children's book inspired by their story, which had already sold over 100,000 copies. The proceeds funded aviation camp scholarships for underserved youth. Before Jolie could respond, another familiar face appeared. Sarah Mitchell. After completing her sensitivity training, she had requested to become a trainer herself, sharing her story as a testimony to the importance of growth and change. Their eyes met, and Mitchell gave a respectful nod, both women acknowledging how far things had come. "The real change," Jolie addressed the trainees, "happens in small moments. It's in the way you greet each passenger, the respect you show to everyone regardless of their appearance, and the courage to speak up when you see something wrong." Jennifer Torres, now a regular presence at the airline's tech division, joined them with her tablet. "The numbers are impressive," she reported. "Our incident reporting app has been adopted by 3 other major airlines. Customer satisfaction is at an all-time high." Marcus Chen appeared, briefcase in hand, returning from another successful mediation. The advocacy board he helped establish had become a model for corporate accountability across industries. "Don't forget to mention the legislation," he reminded Jolie. "The Equal Skies Act goes before Congress next month." The gate area filled with passengers as boarding time approached. Among them was the young girl who had drawn the picture 6 months ago. Now she wore a junior flight attendant pin, part of the airline's youth mentorship program. Her mother mouthed "thank you" to Jolie as they passed. Captain Sullivan arrived in her full uniform, her silver hair gleaming under her captain's hat. "Ready for one last flight?" she asked, beaming. The passengers applauded spontaneously, many recognizing her from the media coverage of the airline's transformation. Maya tugged at Captain Sullivan's sleeve. "Can I see the cockpit again before you go?" The elderly pilot had become a grandmother figure to Maya, nurturing her growing interest in aviation. The changes they'd fought for were already shaping Maya's generation. As the boarding process began, Jolie noticed something remarkable. The passengers represented a beautiful cross-section of humanity, and the crew served everyone with equal warmth and professionalism. The incident that had sparked this transformation felt simultaneously like yesterday and a lifetime ago. "Mommy," Maya whispered, "remember when you were scared about speaking up on that flight?" Jolie touched her father's pendant. "I wasn't scared, sweet pea. I was determined. Sometimes the hardest moments lead us exactly where we need to go. The final boarding call echoed through the terminal. Captain Sullivan prepared to board for her historic flight, but paused to give Maya a quick hug. "Keep reaching for those stars, young lady. The sky's gotten a lot bigger for all of us." As the aircraft pushed back from the gate, Jolie watched through the window, Maya's hand in hers. The morning sun caught the plane's wings, creating a brilliant flash of light. In that moment, she thought about all the paths that had crossed that day 6 months ago, all the lives that had been touched, all the changes that had taken flight. The plane lifted into the sky, carrying with it more than just passengers. It carried hope, progress, and the promise of a better tomorrow. Jolie's phone buzzed with a message from Cloudtech's CEO. "Just boarded. Proud to fly with an airline that stands for something. Looking forward to renewing our contract." Maya pressed her face against the window, watching the plane disappear into the clouds. "We did it, didn't we, Mom? We really made things better." Jolie smiled, remembering her own mother's words about creating change. "We sure did, sweet pea. And this is just the beginning."